Hey guys, it's Ken here, bringing you the long-awaited audio training that we talked about. This is primarily voiceover training using Garageband and music. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to make that all work. And just to keep it short, I'm just going to dive right in. And what we have right here is the Garageband interface. And just so you have an idea of what we're talking about, I sent you guys an audio file a while back so you could hear kind of what I'd like to be shooting for as far as voiceover sound is concerned. So I'm going to play back this piece right here that I recorded. It was very quick to record. Short, 15-second spot, I believe. And you'll get an idea of how the voice sounds and how the music sounds with it. And then we'll talk about all of the little aspects of that. So here is the sample. Here we go. Oops, wrong thing. Here we go. If you use conference calling, you know what it's like to be put on hold for who knows how long while you know who assembles your call. But if you use the Access Advanced Call-In system, each member could be entered into the conference as they arrived, just like any other civilized meeting of the minds. All right, so hopefully what you heard from that was a nice, deep, rich-sounding voice with music that surrounded the voice but didn't get in the way of it. There was nothing competing with anything. You still heard the music underneath, but the voice was nice and crisp and clean, and we're going to talk about how to do that. But before we do anything, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and close up that particular file, and what I have is GarageBand 3. Now, you guys may have a different version of GarageBand. My operating system is 10.5.8, so I'm not updated yet. I'm not even in the 10.6s, and Mac is up to 10.7 right now, but part of that has to do with all of my software, and it's a long story. Anyway, what I want to do is just give you a basic idea of how to use GarageBand. You may have a little bit of difference in some of your interfaces, but everything should be fairly similar, and I should be able to I'll give you an idea of how all of this works. But here we go. So the first thing is we need to create a new project. So I've booted up GarageBand, and now we're going to create a new music project. And this is how GarageBand almost always opens up. You create a new music project. So you click here, and you name your music project. Now I'm going to go to this. I'm going to choose my folder that I want to put this music project in, and I'm going to call this voiceover instruction. Okay? So we're going to call it voiceover instruction. Now down here at the bottom, you'll see several different things. You'll see a tempo, time, that's your time signature, it's 4/4 time. You'll see 120 beats per minute as your tempo. You'll also see a key, whether or not it's a major or a minor. You don't need to worry about any of that unless you're actually composing music using internal sounds and stuff that GarageBand has. There's no need to worry or mess with any of that stuff. So just go ahead and name your project, and then we're going to go ahead and create it. So we'll click on Create, and GarageBand opens up. Now what GarageBand does right away is it gives us one track, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but there are a couple of things that are extremely important that you need to remember before we actually get into recording audio. The first thing that you need to remember is that GarageBand will not record properly through the audio interface. That's the external red box that we use. That's called the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. That's the red box that we hook up with the USB cable. GarageBand will not operate properly unless you have that box set up appropriately with your system. So there are two things that you need to do, and if you miss one of them, then it won't work. So, oops, sorry about that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go down here to our system preferences on the Mac. This is just the Mac's system preferences overall. We're going to click on that. And when we open that up, we need to go to the section where it says sound. And what you need to do is you need to choose your input and your output. Now, what you'll see here, I've got my input, my output set up differently right now, but I'm just going to go ahead and show you for an example. This is what you're going to choose for your output. Scarlett 2i2, all right? And then you'll go to your input and you'll choose Scarlett 2i2 as well. Basically, the point is you want your input and your output to be using the same device on your system preferences. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go to GarageBand. This is the second part of the thing you have to do. Go to GarageBand, go to Preferences, and then you'll want to choose the same audio output here. You'll want to choose the Scarlett 2i2, You'll also want to choose the Scarlett 2i2 here. Again, I don't have them chosen for the purposes of this recording, but you're going to want to choose Scarlett 2i2 and Scarlett 2i2 there as well. Once you do that and you have Scarlett 2i2 chosen for input and output in GarageBand and in your system preferences, then you'll be ready to record. Hopefully that all makes sense. We're going to move on from here to recording. Okay, now on to recording. I know that all of you have used the microphone and the external audio interface in the past, so you know how to plug the microphone into the front of the unit. You know how to set the gain levels. The main thing that you want to make sure of when you're setting the gain level on the input of the 2i2 is that it's not getting the red LED to illuminate. You want to keep it illuminating green and maybe only very infrequently the red light lighting up, if ever at all. You want to get it right underneath where that red light is lighting up so that you get a nice, clean, full-sounding voice without it overdriving the inputs. It doesn't matter where you have the switch selected on the bottom of that unit, whether it says instrument or line. It really doesn't matter because that won't be affected by the microphone being plugged into it. You also want to make sure that you have the 48-volt phantom power engaged. There's a little button that turns red when the phantom power is turned on. You press that button until it turns red, and what that does is that provides power to this microphone. This microphone is a condenser microphone, which needs a little bit of power to help it to run. And so the box will provide 48 volts of phantom power to the microphone. If you were using a standard dynamic microphone that is not a condenser microphone, then you would turn that phantom power off. But in this case, for our purposes, we always want to have that on. You'll also want to have the switch on that says direct monitor. You'll want to have that switched to on, and the reason for that is so that the person who is doing the voiceover can hear themselves in their headphones. You'll plug the headphones in to the side over there. You'll have the direct monitor on, and then you can turn the headphone volume up so that the person who is listening can hear themselves. If you don't have that on, then you're going to get some delay in the signal back to the ears while you're recording. The only reason you would want to turn that switch to the off position is when you're in the midst of actually mixing something and maybe you want to listen to it through the audio interface. But in that case, you could simply plug the headphones directly into the computer and listen to the mixing that way instead of doing it through the audio interface. So best thing, always have that switched to the direct monitor, switched to on, so that the person who is recording themselves can hear their voice in the headphones. And the other thing that we need to remember is that there is a front and a back to the microphone. The front of the microphone has the manufacturer's name, Audio-Technica. The back of the microphone says back. You don't want to be speaking into the back of the microphone because you won't get good sounding audio out of it that way. So make sure you're speaking into the front of the microphone and that you've got the audio level set so that the red light is not illuminating on the front of the audio interface, and you'll be ready to go. Okay, so now it's time to record, and what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the project that we'd already opened, the new project that we had just started, and you'll notice again, as we mentioned earlier, that there is a track on there already, and the type of track this is, you can find out what kind of a track it is just by going down here to the corner and clicking on I for information. And it will tell you that this is a software instrument. Again, a software instrument is made up of sounds that reside within the computer. That's not what we want. We can't change that track to a real instrument, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a new track. So we go up to track, then we go to new track, we click on that, and it asks us, do you want a software instrument or a real instrument? And we want a real instrument, an audio recording such as a voice, guitar, or bass, or any instrument that can be captured by a microphone. That's what we want. So we're going to create a real instrument. And now that we've done that, you can see already that I've got audio going into it because it's armed to record. The way it is armed to record is there's a little red button right here. It says enable or disable recording for the track. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn that off so we can see what happens. And when I turn it off, you can see that no longer am I getting audio into GarageBand to record. But when I turn it back on, you can see that GarageBand is receiving audio from my microphone, and that's a good thing. Now, the only thing is, I really don't need this software instrument anymore, so I'm going to go up here and click on track. On that track, I'm going to click on the word track up here in the menus, and I'm going to say delete that track. So we got rid of that track. We don't need it anymore. Now, if you're clever, you'll notice that this has there are two meters up here, one for the left channel and one for the right channel. And for some reason, I'm only getting something in the left channel. Well, I'll show you why that is. We're recording a mono signal into a system that is currently set up for stereo. So the way to change that is to go down here to your input settings. Again, if you haven't clicked I, then you won't see this. But what you need to do is you need to make sure that you've clicked on I for information. It will open up the side panel, and then you can see the track that you're on. We're on a real instrument. This is a basic track with no effects. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to go down here to where it says input, and we're going to change that from channel 1 and 2 stereo to channel 1 audio. And when I do that, let's see what happens to the meters up there. I change it to channel 1 audio, and now you can see up here at the top that both meters are, both the left and the right channel are being fed equally by my one single voice. Now there's another button down here that says monitor. I like to leave that off right now just because the monitor that I would get back, that would be monitoring the audio that is being recorded. And if I were to listen to that, I might receive a bit of a delay that might mess up my ability to verbalize well to read my script. So I'm going to leave that monitor turned off. Okay, a couple other little things that we can do before we get started. We could go down here and we could change the icon over in the left-hand corner to something like a voiceover icon like this one right here. If you click on that, now you can see it changed it to voiceover icon, and that's kind of cool. All right, so now we are ready to record. There's one other thing that we'll want to do, though, to make sure that we're not going to have any hindrances to our recording. When we go up to the menu bar up here, we can check and see all of these different things. There's nothing in that menu that we need to worry about, nothing in the file menu that we need to worry about, nothing there in the edit, nothing in the track. But over here in control, you'll see that it says metronome. We don't want to hear a metronome while we're recording. A metronome is a little click that keeps you in time with the music. We don't want to hear that at all, so I'm going to turn the metronome off. All right? So now my metronome is off. I'm armed to record. I'm getting a good recording level here. We've already adjusted our recording level on the S2i2. We've adjusted the gain on that so that we're not overdriving the input. So we've got a very good signal here now. So we're really ready to record. So what I'm going to do now, this track is armed to record. We're going to go down to the master record, and we're going to go ahead and start recording. And I've got the script that we used in this previous example. I'll just read through that. Here we go. If you use conference calling, you know what it's like to be put on hold for who knows how long while you know who assembles your call. But if you use the Access Advanced Call-In system, each member could be entered into the conference as they arrive, just like any other civilized meeting of the minds. All right. And then I stopped recording, and now you can see that I've got my track here. Let's just go ahead and play that back so that we can hear it. If you use conference calling, you know what it's like to be put on hold for who knows how long while you know who assembles your call. But if you use the Access Advanced Call-In system, each member could be entered into the conference as they arrive, just like any other civilized meeting of the minds. All right, so we've recorded our track, and it sounds okay, but now what we need to do is we need to make it sound even better and mix it with some music. So let's add some music. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look through all of the stock music tracks that we have within GarageBand. There are plenty of other tracks that you can use from external sources and so on, but I already know of a track that's going to work in here perfectly well, but I also want to show you how the interface works. So in order to find some music to go along with this track, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to the bottom, and we're going to click on this eyeball. Now, one of the things that I want to point out again is that I'm using an older version of Garageband. Your interface may look a little bit more different here. You can access things in multiple ways in Garageband. You may have already figured this out, but I like to use the little icons that are on the interface. You can go down here to use the view section. There are shortcuts that you can use as well. But I'm going to go ahead and click on this little eyeball. It says view or hide the loop browser. So I'm going to click on that. And what I'm going to be looking for, you can take a look at all of the loops that GarageBand has available. You can look at jingles or stingers or sound effects. I'm going to choose jingles because I know there's one specific song that has a beginning and an end. Loops don't have a beginning and an end. They just keep looping. Stingers, they're usually very short. But what I want is a jingle that's got a beginning and an end. And I know specifically that there's one that's called Electric Rodeo. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to see if I can find that one. Now, there it is. Now, you can see there are 3 different versions of Electric Rodeo. There's Electric Rodeo Long, that's 31 seconds. There's Electric Rodeo Medium, that's 15 seconds. There's Electric Rodeo Short, that's 7 seconds long. So I know that this track right now is just a little bit over 9 seconds long. So I want something that's going to have a little bit of a beginning and a little before the voiceover starts and a little bit of an end after the voiceover ends. It looks to me like Electric Rodeo Medium may work perfectly well. Now you can see this pop-up that says click a loop to preview or drag to add it to the song. You can preview it. Here it goes. All right, now that one sounds really good. So I'm going to go ahead and simply drag that up into my workspace here, into the timeline. And when I drag it up there, you can see a little plus, a little green plus down below the name of it. And that means that I'm adding this. So I drag it with my left mouse click, or with a Mac, just a standard mouse click, drag it up and then let go and drop it. Now it kind of drops into place randomly. And you can reposition this in many different ways. One of the things that I'd like to point out to you is that up here in the Control tab, you can choose whether or not you want any of your media to snap to a grid. If you click on that, it's going to snap in place at various different locations. There's a specific grid set up. If you zoom in on your timeline, you can see that the grid gets even more precise. But I'm going to zoom back out so that we can see everything a little bit better. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off the snap to grid because I want to be able to be much more flexible with where I put this track. So I turned off my snap to grid, and now you can see it's sliding very smoothly. And I'm going to go to the beginning of my voiceover, and I'm going to slide this track over just a little bit to make sure that I've got it in place where it begins before the voiceover starts, and then it ends over here, let's see, right after the voiceover ends. See how that trails out? You can actually see the audio wave file there for the voice, the audio wave file for the music track. So I've got it in a pretty good place right now. I'm going to zoom back out so we can see the whole thing. And right now, again, I have no effects at all on the voice. I haven't done any mixing with the audio track at all. So this is how it sounds, just straight set up with nothing done to it. Here we go. If you use conference calling, you know what it's like to be put on hold for who knows how long while you know who assembles your call. But if you use the Access Advanced Call-In system, each member could be entered into the conference as they arrived, just like any other civilized meeting of the minds. Okay, now we've got it lined up pretty well. everything seems to fit well together, except if you noticed, the voice was not very clear. The music was clean and crisp and loud, but the voice was getting buried underneath the music. So there's all sorts of ways we could fix that. We could go in and we could change the volume level at various points in the music track, but there's an easier way to do this, and it's called ducking. Now, some of you may have already experimented with ducking in Premiere. I think Premiere has a way to duck within the video editing interface, but I like to do all of my audio first and get all of that sounding perfect, and then bring that into the video editing interface and not have to worry about doing audio editing within the video editing software. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go up to Control, and underneath Control you can see there's something called ducking. And again, there's a shortcut over here. If you want to learn the shortcuts, you can learn all the keyboard shortcuts to do this, but I'm just going to show you all of the drop downs so that you can see how this works. I'm going to click on ducking, and when I do, you'll notice a couple of things happen. I click on ducking, and then over here on the right side of each of these tracks is an up and down arrow on both sides. Now, it says here, it automatically just selects that it thinks that the first track is the track that you want to control the ducking with, and that anything after that will be the tracks that are controlled by ducking. Basically, what ducking does is it says, this is the track that you want to control everything with. It's going to be the loudest part of the mix. Everything else below that will be lowered appropriately so that that first track can come through. Now, I could change this. I could make this also a control track, but I'm just going to make this one that is being affected. So I'm going to click down on this. I'm going to click up on that just to make sure that that one is the control track. So this one is controlling everything, and watch what happens now. Let's just hear it without adjusting the ducking level at all. Let's just listen to it and see if it makes a difference. If you use conference calling, you know what it's like to be put on hold for who knows how long while you know who assembles your call. But if you use the Access Advanced Call-In system, each member could be entered into the conference as they arrived, just like any other civilized meeting of the minds. All right. Now, hopefully you heard that the voice now was the predominant part of the track, and that the music was lowered or ducked down below the voice. It's pretty cool. Now, you can adjust the amount of ducking that you have simply by going over here and clicking on Master Track. And then when you go down to the very bottom, you can see where it says ducking amount. And as I hover over that, it says applies more dramatic volume reduction when ducking. So the larger that, the higher up you go on the scale, the more volume reduction it adds. I like to keep it right about in the center. And that way it's not extremely noticeable that the music is being dropped down really quickly. So that's how you adjust the ducking amount. But there's still some stuff that's lacking in the voice. There's a presence that is lacking in the voice that we want to fix. So there's a way that we're going to handle that. We're first going to make sure that we've clicked on the voice track. We don't want to have the music track selected. We want to go to the voice track. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go over here and choose podcasting as an effect, because there are some settings in here that are pretty great. Now, again, we want to make sure that we've got our real instrument button selected. Then we go down and we click on podcasting, and then we can click on male narrator. And what that will do is it will set some effects into place that will change the sound of the male voice. So I'm going to click on that, and now what it's done is it has brought up some things down here. Now, your settings may look a little different from mine, but just so that you can see what was brought up on mine, the male narrator will include a gate, a compressor, and a speech enhancer. And you can adjust these to however you see fit. What the gate does is it gets rid of noise in the background of the voice recording that you've made. The compressor makes everything sound a bit more even in volume. And the speech enhancer will allow you to adjust the overall quality of the voice, almost like an equalization type of a thing, based on some specific settings. I have created my own setting up here that I like to use for my voiceovers, and it sounds really good. You can create your own custom settings, and we'll get into how to do that later, but I just thought I'd show you how this works. I'm going to click on Ken's Male VO setting. It's basically the same as the narrator settings with a couple of changes. When I click on that, you'll notice that it says you have made changes to the current instrument setting, basically asking if you want to keep them, if you want to discard the previous settings. I'm going to discard them and go to my new settings. So I discard them. And now what you'll notice down here is we have basically the same kind of setup. We've got a gate, a compressor, a speech enhancer, and the equalizer down here. We had all of those before in the male narrator setup, but these are my specific settings for the male narrator preset. These are the ones that I like the best. I like my gate to be almost all the way, maybe 3/4 of the way up. I like my compressor to be a little bit lower than that, and there's no precise like percentage setting or anything like that. This is all just kind of trial and error, but these are approximate values for me. The speech enhancer, I like to put on manual. Now there are selections that you can do. You can choose from a variety of things here, but I like to do a manual speech enhancer, and this is the way I like to set it up. You set your manual setting there, then you click on Edit the Effect Preset, and when you do that, it brings up a pop-up box, and selected here is On and Manual. Now from here, I can choose the microphone type. I like to just use the generic microphone type. It will ask you, like, if you're using the microphone from your PowerBook or from an iMac or a variety of different computers. There are settings for those, but for our purposes, this is a microphone that's not included in those settings. So I choose generic, and the voice type I choose is male voiceover. You can choose female solo, female voiceover, male solo, male voiceover. You may even have more settings in yours. I like to choose male voiceover. So everything is set there. I have my gate set, my compressor set, my speech enhancer set. We also previously had our ducking set up. Now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to listen to this whole piece and see how much better it sounds with the effects on versus what it sounded like before, as well as with the ducking. Check this out now. If you use conference calling, you know what it's like to be put on hold for who knows how long while you know who assembles your call. But if you use the Access Advanced Call-In system, each member could be entered into the conference as they arrived, just like any other civilized meeting of the minds. Now all that's left is for you guys to export the track, and you guys know how to do that through the Share menu system up here. That's something for another lesson, but I think most of you already know how to do that anyway. So you simply export your track, and you're done. You're ready to bring it into your video editing system. So there you have it. We have set up GarageBand and our computer for the proper inputs with the external audio interface. We've set up our external audio interface to be able to properly set the levels of our microphone, make sure that we have our phantom power on. We've gotten all that done. We've recorded our voiceover track. We've added a music track to it. We added ducking, and then we added some effects to the voice, and we have a fairly professional sounding voiceover without having to worry about riding the volume controls, without having to do a whole lot of extra crazy work. If you can remember these basic principles, your voiceovers are going to sound a whole lot better to your videos, and that is in turn going to make your videos look a whole lot more professional. We can talk more about specifics. If you have any other questions, I can address those at a later time, but this is just to give you a basic outline of how to use these interfaces. Mess around with them, see how they work. Give me a call with any questions, guys. I'll look forward to hearing from you.